Tansei, good evening. I'm Chris Nachkite. Welcome to APTN National News. A series of profanity-filled voicemails allegedly left by an elected official with Métis Nation Saskatchewan have been made public. The messages are said to be tied to a family feud, and they include insults and threats of violence. APTN video journalist Rachel May spoke with one of the people who says she was on the receiving end of some of those voicemails.
You're an ignorant. You will never, ever, ever get help from the Métis Nation as long as I'm around.
That was one of many voicemails left by MNS Eastern Region 2 Representative Brent Dignes, according to his sister Dion Black. She says her brother left similar messages with other family members. She says a conflict began in 2020 when Dignes tried to take a road grader given to her and her husband, Wesley Black, by Dignes and Black's parents. Black says some voicemails date back to July 2025, but most were left on January 10th, 2026, with the final call around 7:30 p.m.
His volatile behavior is random. You don't know what is going to set him off.
She says after attending Métis local meetings and showing photos of her grandchild to MNS citizens, she received voicemails about her attendance.
Don't come to any more local meetings. You're not welcome there. You make me want to puke, you dirty rotten. You scatterbrained.
Black has filed RCMP reports and sought a protection order, but it was denied. She and her husband reported the most recent voicemail incident to the RCMP, hoping to secure an order this time. In a statement, MNS says Dignes has been removed from his ministerial roles and is chair of the Clarence Campo Development Fund and the Saskatchewan Métis Economic Development Corporation. President Glenn McCallum will assume those roles. The statement also says, quote, "These actions are necessary to uphold the integrity of our government and to adhere to the values we hold as Métis people." The MNS Ethics Committee is now investigating. Black says she hopes MNS upholds their code of conduct and takes action.
I want them to make him accountable and not just try to brush this under the table and minimize it. That this is serious, and he has done this. It's a repeated pattern of his, and it's escalating.
Black says she hopes Dignes is terminated and that 2 elected officials currently barred from provincial Métis Council meetings are reinstated, saying their actions do not compare to her brother's. Dignes apologized on his personal Facebook page, saying he accepts the consequences of his actions and asking not to be judged. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Members of the Mushkegowuk Council were in Ottawa on Wednesday to press the federal and Ontario governments to do more in helping the Mushkegowuk First Nation in Northern Ontario. The First Nation has been struggling to deal with a water crisis since early in the new year. The Mushkegowuk First Nation is located near the western shore of James Bay. The community has been without safe drinking water since January 4th, when its water treatment system broke down. The situation caused sewage to back up into homes and contaminate water with E. coli. Mushkegowuk declared a local state of emergency and called for a general evacuation for all of its 2,300 residents. As of Wednesday, less than 1,000 residents have been evacuated to Timmins, Kapuskasing, Kingston, and Niagara Falls. Speaking at a press conference, Mushkegowuk Council Grand Chief Leo Friday called the incident a humanitarian crisis and said Mushkegowuk's water plant is outdated and needs to be replaced. He also says the community needs military assistance with the evacuation.
He asked and they asked for Hercules to airlift them from the community to a better, safe place. But Canada and Ontario denied. We asked for bigger airplanes, bigger than Dash 4, Dash 8.
And First Nation leaders are planning to travel to Mushkegowuk tomorrow. Ontario Minister of Indigenous Affairs Greg Rickford has also been invited for that trip. No word yet if he will attend. A mobile medical clinic has also been set up to treat any residents as they continue to wait to be evacuated. Quebec Premier François Legault has resigned. He did so Wednesday morning in a press conference held at Quebec's National Assembly. Legault was the leader of the Coalition Avenir Quebec, also known as the CAQ. He has served as Premier of Quebec since 2018. Provincial elections are set to take place this fall. For numerous months, the CAQ has been plummeting in the polls. Recent data from political forecasting website 338 Canada shows the CAQ is trailing. The CAQ is tied at 11% with Quebec Solidaire. The Parti Québécois is in the lead with 34%. During Legault's tenure, he denied the existence of systemic racism. This came after the death of Joyce Echaquan in 2020. The Atikamekw woman died after live streaming her experience in a hospital in Joliet, Quebec. Nurses could be heard making racist remarks to Echaquan, assuming she was in withdrawal. Atikamekw Chief Constant Awashish says systemic racism cannot be denied. During today's press conference, Legault explains why he stepped down.
Je vois bien qu'actuellement, beaucoup de Québécois souhaitent d'abord du changement, puis entre autres, un changement de premier ministre. Pour le bien de mon parti et surtout pour le bien du Québec, j'annonce aujourd'hui que je vais quitter mon poste de premier ministre du Québec. Je vais rester en place le temps que mon parti désigne un remplaçant ou une remplaçante.
Donc, c'est un système. On ne peut pas nier qu'il y a un racisme systémique à l'encontre des Premières Nations. Ça a duré très longtemps sur la place publique, ce débat-là. C'était difficile pour nous. Les Premières Nations, c'était difficile évidemment pour les Atikamekw, étant donné que la tragédie a été subie par une de nos membres.
The federal government has recently announced funding which they say will strengthen Indigenous participation in critical minerals development. Patty Haidu, the minister responsible for the Federal Economic Development Agency for Northern Ontario, or FedNor, made the announcement. An $850,000 investment was announced for economic development projects across the region. The funding covers 14 Indigenous-led projects in Northern Ontario and is designed to support engagement, capacity building, and knowledge-sharing activities. It's tied to clean energy and transportation infrastructure initiatives related to critical minerals. Chief Paul Gladue says this would also be a good time to talk about building communications infrastructure. He pointed to the lack of stable internet and cell phone connections along the highway between Thunder Bay and his community.
You can't talk business on because you got a line and all of a sudden you get cut off. There's so many dead zones along the way. In our community, it's the same thing. If you move your phone too quick, you get cut off. And having Starlink, don't get me wrong, Starlink brought us, to this day, but we sure like to have some good Wi-Fi and good optic line coming through.
Such an important point, though, and I do think that when we advance, roads, bridges, access and connection, that is the prime time to make sure we're doing the digital highway as well.
A fire in downtown Winnipeg has left a number of people without a place to stay. That story after the break. Welcome back. More information now about the fire in Winnipeg that left one building destroyed and a homeless shelter evacuated. The city's mayor and fire chief spoke with reporters this afternoon. APTN Sav Jones now with the details.
The historic Manwin Hotel in Winnipeg's downtown core was destroyed by a fire that began around 3:45 a.m. Wednesday morning. Fire crews were still blasting water on the wreckage into the afternoon, with an emergency demolition taking place soon after to remove whatever was left standing. The neighboring Main Street project, shelter and food bank, was evacuated as a precaution.
These buildings are all very important to our community, and I am very grateful for our crews for their hard work in preventing further damage to the buildings in the area.
Fire Chief Christian Schmidt says a crew arrived to the fire about 4 minutes after the 911 call, with a total of 49 firefighters at the scene within 15 minutes. He says no injuries have been reported, but added that they could not search the vacant Manwin Hotel for squatters due to the fire conditions. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The neglected hotel was used as a single-room occupancy for several years before being forced to close in February 2025 due to ongoing health and safety hazards.
It's always very, very unfortunate when we lose a heritage building in the city. But I think what has happened today is proof that we made the right call in shutting down the Manwood a year ago. The building suffered from numerous fire safety issues, and this could have been a much worse tragedy if there were dozens of people still living there.
The hotel was put up for sale last year for just under $2.8 million before the listing expired. APTN Investigates toured the building in 2024, revealing the shocking living conditions that tenants were subjected to. At the time, many of those living in the Manwin Hotel were Indigenous people trying to evade homelessness.
All these properties that are vacant and derelict, not only are they a hazard to catch fire like we've seen today and put other properties at risk, but more importantly, residents at risk and our firefighters.
Winnipeg temperatures are expected to get colder in the coming days, hitting wind chill lows well below -30 over the weekend. That's already bad news for Winnipeg's unhoused population, but made worse with the Main Street project shelter now closed for a few days due to the fire. Roughly 300 people use the shelter daily, says their executive director, Jamil Mahmood. Other shelters in the city are making room in already tight spaces to help out. Sav Jones, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, Sav. A Northern First Nation in Saskatchewan experienced a water emergency, leaving the community with limited access to water. Officials have now confirmed what caused that disruption to the water intake system. On January 7th, Pelican Narrows First Nation in northeastern Saskatchewan reported an emergency impacting the water supply to the water treatment plant. The issue was confirmed to be a major break in the raw water pipeline. About 40 liters per second was being pumped from the lake, but only 12 to 14 liters per second reached the plant. Repairs began Tuesday and are expected to be completed by this Thursday. A boil water advisory and water conservation measures remain in effect, and the walking path between schools is closed due to an active excavation to repair the pipeline. For years, a remote Château Dene community in the Northwest Territories has been trying to replace their old one-room log schoolhouse. Now leaders of the Betzingde First Nation are saying a work plan has been agreed to by the territorial government to build a new kindergarten to grade 12 school. Of the 150 residents in Betzingde, 1/3 are school-aged. In 2020, APTN reported on overcrowding and septic issues in the old school and on absenteeism and staff burnout. Betzingde leaders say the new work plan comes after territorial politicians toured the community this month. It contains a timeline, and the new design reflects their cultural knowledge and will serve as a community hub.
We have a lot of young parents that want to go back to school, but then there's no daycare, etc. So when we did a design, the school, it included daycare, it included adult ed, that type of stuff, so that you're there with your children in that same facility. So those are all just a centralized educational facility. So those were discussions that the community contributed to.
Right away here over the course of the next month is to finalize the functional programming. So that's really those conversations around, the school population today is about 55 students. What are the projections based on the fact that Coville Lake is such a young population? What are some of those specialty spaces that right now off the hop, they know that students are interested in? And so kind of those preliminary conversations around functional programming and student population.
Photo of the day and weather is up next. Plus, we'll give you a tour of a beloved restaurant in Winnipeg. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Joyce Cochran shared this photo of her frosty view as seen from Hecla Island in Manitoba. Such a great photo, Joyce. Thanks for sharing it with us. Send us your pictures to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. You can send us nature, family, or weather pictures, anything you think our viewers would appreciate. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. On the East Coast, St. John's showers in 9, Charlottetown rain in 6, Cartwright partly cloudy in 1, Happy Valley Goose Bay rain in 1, Quebec City 0, Saguenay -12, Toronto -10, Sarnia -5, -13 in Sudbury, Sioux Lookout -10, God's Lake -8, Puckatawagan 0, 0 in Gimli, Dauphin 0, -1 in Swift Current, Saskatoon 0, Meadow Lake -1, Larange partly cloudy and -1 as well. Sun's out in Fort Chipewyan at -7, Peace River -2. Lethbridge 5, clear skies in Red Deer at 1. Cloudy in Vancouver at 5, Kamloops 1. Fort Nelson 3, Smithers 0. -5 in Watson Lake, -14 in Dawson. Sunny in Wati at -21, Fort Simpson -21. Tuktoyaktuk -30, Paulatuk -29. minus 15 in Baker Lake, Chesterfield, sunny and minus 18. And Arctic Bay, minus 22, Aglulik, clear skies and minus 16. Feast Cafe Bistro in Winnipeg's West End neighborhood is more than just a restaurant. The Indigenous business owned by Krista Gunther is a staple in the community, serving food that combines traditional Indigenous cuisine and modern ways. Feast focuses on relationships between food and people and grounds everything they do in the land. APTN's Julia Ross gives us a tour of the restaurant, including all that good food they chef up in the kitchen.
I was sitting in this blank space just before we started our renovations and trying to think, what are we going to call this restaurant? And, you know, the person that I was sitting with said, well, what does food mean to you? And I said, okay, it means food is love, food is medicine, food is family, sharing, community, ceremony, feasting. And then we both just stopped and looked at each other and we said, feast. That was it. So, and then we decided to call it Cafe Bistro because we wanted to highlight that we are a day place and then also an evening spot to come, for customers to come to. I've spent the last 25 years reconnecting to my culture through food. So it started with just incorporating one or two ingredients. Once I started discovering what are our traditional foods, you know, what are specific to Manitoba, and things like squash. You know, I would see them at the grocery store and never go near it because I didn't know what it was until I knew what it was. It was one of the three sisters, which is the beans, corn, squash. So my menu kind of evolved with learning how to cook at home. Try to incorporate as many traditional foods that I was learning about into my everyday meals. So the menu at Feast really is a collection of that. Menu items that people are familiar with, like bannock pizza instead of just a regular pizza, putting squash on it and pine nuts and maple and different, you know, Indigenous ingredients on that pizza to make it my own. It was really important for me to have Manitoba bison, number one. Sometimes I will bring products, you know, from my own garden. We work with a lot of local Indigenous communities for a lot of our products, like our wild rice, sometimes our Saskatoons, our pickerel. We really want to support our local Indigenous communities first and foremost. I have no beef on my menu. I do on the catering menu as an option, but in the restaurant from day one, 10 years ago, I only had bison. And I have to say it was one of the first restaurants in the country to only have bison, but I really needed to stand for that traditional food and that animal and the health of it and the fact that it teaches us so much about resilience and strength and the nutritional value of bison and Manitoba bisons. We have a local gardener here in the West End who grows us our traditional, some of our traditional vegetables like our heritage squash and sometimes like our sweetgrass, for example, you know, that gets harvested, you know, throughout our prairies. So, you know, we kind of source from as much as we can locally from Indigenous communities. Then we go into the local farmers, and then we go beyond that. You know, there's so much that's local and foraged that we can start introducing to our menu. And we do, you know, seasonal specials and things like that where we incorporate different things that we can get seasonally harvested at that time. But it's a challenge all the time, and we're trying to be creative and continuing to evolve. I think we can all be honest to say that a lot of our traditional Indigenous, First Nation and Métis foods are rooted in a lot of negative things like poverty, diabetes, suicide, all of that negative stuff. So I really wanted to create new positive food pathways around our traditional foods and our history and our community and celebrate that in a restaurant to just kind of revive that negative stigma. I think we can all agree that Feast is more than just a restaurant, and it has been since day one. We have a free soup and bannock program every single day from 2 till 5. You know, we have a lot of plants in the restaurant, so if you don't finish your water, we're going to use that to water the plants. So we're just really mindful of the environment and Mother Earth and food waste and all that kind of stuff. When I think about the next year to 2 years to 5 years. It's been a long time dream of mine to expand on different things, educational videos or recipes, or maybe a cookbook, maybe a second location, to continue to go on this journey in this restaurant business and continue to, you have to admit there's 1 or 2 or 3 restaurants in the entire country of Canada. It's growing slowly but surely. So I really want to keep having a strong voice in our hospitality industry for restaurants. A lot of our staff are, First Nations and Métis peoples from different communities, and just all of us coming together in this space to try and really celebrate who we were and who we are and who we will continue to be, especially in the hospitality industry. The history that Feast is trying to preserve is not only just with the food and the ingredients. It's to remember our ancestors, to remember our culture, to remember our past, to celebrate that, to share Indigenous artwork here and Indigenous music here, and celebrate different communities here.
Very tasty indeed. I will have to make a stop there very soon. And that's your evening newscast. We're back again midday tomorrow for your daytime newscast. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon again. Excellent.